Last week I started speaking about the famous question why we're going to need the Arei Miklat, the cities of refuge, when Moshiach will come. One of the proofs.
One of the rayas that Rambam brings is because it's
one of the proofs. Not only are we going to have the mitzvah of Arei Miklat when Moshiach comes, but one of the proofs in the Torah for Moshiach is from the cities of Arei Miklat. It says that when the Eibusher will widen your boundary as he swore to your ancestors, and you'll inherit the whole land, the Eibusher swore to give to our ancestors, you'll add another 3 cities. In other words, like this, there were 3 cities that were separated in Arei Hayarden. Arei Hayarden is the eastern side of the Jordan River, which that was the territory of Zirkind and Oig that they didn't capture when they went out at the end of the 40 years before they went into Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu captured that territory, and there Moshe Rabbeinu himself separated the 3 Arei Miklat. Then when Yidden went into Eretz Yisrael later, and they conquered Eretz Yisrael proper, they separated another 3. Torah tells us there'll come a time that the Eibusher will give us the land that he swore to give to our ancestors, which includes the lands of Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoini, which is one of the standard explanations. What these 3 lands are Edom, Amin, and Moav, which are also, David Hayarden was further up, what's maybe we call in Jordan itself, more towards up north. But the southern Jordan and further down, that used to be the 3 countries of Edom, Amin, and Moav, and that will become part of Eretz Yisrael when Moshiach will come. According to some opinions, this is what Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoini are. And in those cities, the Eibusher commanded us, in those countries, the Eibusher commanded us to add another 3 cities when we get that land. So the question is, first of all, what are we going to need the Arei Miklat for when Moshiach comes? There won't be any murder, right? There won't be, even amongst the nations of the world. We say, Lo yisa goy al goy cherev. No nation will, lift a sword to another nation. So how would it be that there will be murder? Even accidental murder, as I discussed last week, the Rabbi explains, would not be possible when Moshiach will come. Both because even an accidental murder shows that you don't a person doesn't kill himself by accident. Something which is engraved in you not to do, you wouldn't do even by accident. And somebody does something by mistake, it means that there's some evil within him that's expressing itself.
The amazing part of it, the Rabbi explains that according to the Rambam, that's the strongest raya of the actual Rabbi Moshiach.
Yeah.
It's a mitzvah. It's not like
Yeah. So when Moshiach comes and the spirit of impurity will be taken away from the earth, it won't be possible even accidental murder. And also, like I discussed last week, the Rabbi brings that the Gemara said that someone that's killed by accident is really, why does the Eibusher allow it to happen? Because he in the past killed willingly, but there were no witnesses that saw him. And the one that's going to kill him by mistake, killed in the past by mistake, and there were no witnesses, so he never went to exile. So the Eibusher puts them up, makes them meet up together. The one that killed accidentally goes up on the ladder and he falls down and kills this guy which previously murdered willingly. He kills him, so that guy gets his penalty. And the person now, when the guy that kills him accidentally, people see that what had happened, he has to go into exile. So this, even though this murder, maybe what he did wasn't really wrong, because this guy was really deserving of murder, but it's because of a previous time that he killed someone by accident. So the Rabbi says, how could somebody be killed by accident? He must have had he must have been guilty of murder that he should be killed by accident. When Moshiach will come, how will that happen? So I discussed there's a number of answers and approaches.
The Rabbi answers.
The Rabbi gives one of the answers. Yeah, there's other answers also. The Rabbi's Messiah and the Hadith himself. There's a number of different answers, and the Rabbi elaborates upon it. I discussed this last week. I don't want to repeat the whole thing. And the simple point that the Rabbi says, one simple thing is that you could use the Arei Miklat doesn't have to mean that there was a murder that took place in the days of Moshiach. It could be a murder that takes place before the days of Moshiach, and you need the Arei Miklat for, after Moshiach comes, somebody wants to avenge the death of a relative. For a murder that took place before Moshiach comes. the Rabbi goes on, the main chiddush of the Rabbi, so to say, the main arichas of the Rabbi is explaining is how is it possible that a person should have a feeling of vengeance when Mashiach comes. Seemingly it's an act of revenge, and the Rabbi explains it's not an act of revenge. The Torah gives him, Torah is not just, allowing you to express yourself. It's the fact that you feel you want to avenge a person, that the Goel Hadam, the relative of the murdered person, the killed person wants to avenge his blood, is not considered a negative feeling. It's something that the Torah sanctions. But the Rebbe also brings an Arizal. In the Ha'ara, one part of the discussion of Arei Miklat, which leads into the deeper meaning of Arei Miklat when Mashiach comes, the Rebbe brings an Arizal. The Arizal explains like this. The Arizal says, he first starts off, he says, the Torah says, V'im yachiv Hashem l'kecha. If Hashem will widen your boundaries as He spoke to your ancestors, and you'll add these things. So it means it's only if. The question, a lot of Mepharshim, what does it mean, im yachiv? If Hashem will broaden your boundaries. The Torah is telling you, it could happen, it could not happen. If it happens, you have to add 3 Arei Miklat. The Torah is not going to give you a mitzvah for a scenario that could maybe happen, could maybe not happen. Like the Rambam says, the Torah the Eibusha doesn't give, command you to do that. If hypothetically you'll go to Mars, you have a mitzvah to do such and such over there. Torah is giving you a mitzvah. It has to be something that is actually going to happen. Torah says if Hashem will widen your boundaries, it's not an if, it means when, as Rashi explains. I'm sure the word if doesn't mean if, but when. But Arizal says, he gives a very interesting explanation, which also explains the im. If he says, one of the things that Arizal explains at length in Sefer HaGilgulim, he explains that there's 2 types of neshamas, the neshamas of Cain, and the neshamas that come from Hevel. Don't ask me to explain this, I'm not very familiar with the whole thing, but basically, we know that Cain killed Hevel, yeah? Why did Cain kill Hevel? We know that it's considered one of the worst, after the Chet Tzadas, the next sin on the list is the fact that Cain killed Hevel. That was considered a very major sin. But it's explained in Sifrei Kabbalah that Hevel did a certain sin. What was the sin? He looked at the Shekhinah. There's something there that Rizal explains. Hevel did a certain spiritual sin, and that's why he needed to be, he was killed. His tikkun could only come about through being killed. So the Rizal explains at length, he goes through, he says there's 2 fundamental different categories of neshamas. So those that are, I don't know what it means physically or spiritually, I assume it means spiritually, there's neshamas that come from Cain, and neshamas that come from Hevel. And I think he explains in some places how you could tell a little difference. But, so he says that neshamas that come from Hevel, their tikkun, their full rectification only comes through being murdered. By mistake or whatever it is. There's a certain tikkun that happens through Hariga. And he says most of the people that we find that are killed are neshamas of Hevel. So he says like this, what I don't want to get into this whole discussion. If people really want is my modem actually of the Maimon of the Mittel Rebbe. The Rebbe spoke about it also, Chaf Menachem of Tavshin Yud Beis. The Rebbe was speaking about the fact that his father passed away before his time. He was passed away because he was exiled by the communists, and he explains the whole Indian that the certain neshamas that by them passing away before their time, that's their tikkun. Not the tikkun, there's a certain accomplishment. I don't want to get into the whole thing. It's not relevant here. I don't think I'll be able. I don't know enough about it to explain it anyway. But Chassidus discusses a little bit this whole thing of Arizal here. But anyway, Arizal said like this. He says this point. The next point is more or less a famous piece. That Arizal says there's a difference. The Gula could come in 2 ways. It could come in the way of Be'ita, it comes in its time, or it could come in the way of Achishen, it could come before its time. One of the fundamental differences between whether Mashiach comes in its time, if Mashiach comes before its time, if Mashiach comes in its time means that everything is completely finished. If Mashiach comes at that point, all the birurim, all the rectifications, all the nitzoitzes, all the sparks are all, when it comes on its time means the process wasn't, is it still recording?
Yeah.
The volume is on. Fine. So it means that the when Mashiach comes in its time, means that everything, Alpi Pashas, one of the simple ways of explaining it is that there's a certain cheshbon, so to say, calculation of everything that needs to, all the tikkunim, all the rectifications need to be fixed up, and that's the time of Mashiach. Mashiach comes into that time, everything is taken care of. What happens if Mashiach comes achishena, the process is rushed up, didn't do a major tshuva. What happens is Mashiach comes in a very hurried way. So what happens is there are many neshamas that are not fully rectified yet. There are many nitzaitis that are still like the process was rushed up. So he says like this. He says if Mashiach comes in the case of Be'ita, you won't need the Arei Miklat.
That's him.
Yeah, that's him. That's why he says if. If Mashiach comes in the way of Be'ita and it's time, so then all the children of Hevel, the spiritual neshamas of Hevel, all have their tikkun. There will be no need for anyone to be killed innocently by mistake, so there won't be a need for Arei Miklat. If, however, Mashiach comes in the way of Achishena, he comes before its time, so then there's going to be many neshamas of Hevel that still didn't get their full tikkun. So then they're going to have to get their tikkun when Mashiach comes, and that's what it means. If Hashem will widen your boundaries, you'll add these three cities you're going to have, because you're going to have so many neshamas left. So you're going to need to have more Arei Miklat. People, the number of neshamas killed accidentally, and you're going to need to have these three Arei Miklat. Now, there's two ways of understanding this Arizal. The Rebbe says, one way of understanding it is Kipshutai. The Arei Miklat that explain this is the whole, the Arei Miklat that explain is the whole, the Nekuda that they explain is that once the neshama finishes its job according to the standard way, that there could be a certain unikas achitzainim, a certain klipa could get a certain level of nourishment. If a person is killed, and if neshama is taken away before it fully finishes its thing, so the klipas can't get anything out of it. Whatever it means, I'm not even going to try to explain. So it's explained as the neshamas of kind of Hevel had to dafka die before his time, whatever it might be. So, according one way of understanding it is literally whatever this means, that there's going to be certain neshamas that for whatever reason they waste, they're going to be somehow killed innocently, and that's why you're going to need Arei Miklat. However, there's another way of understanding. So Moshiach explains that on a totally different level. He says that the whole thing is a spiritual thing. The whole tikkun, the whole rectification for the neshamas of Hevel, and the whole idea of them being killed by mistake is not literally that they're, that someone will be killed. He explains the whole thing is a spiritual thing. He says, and the way he explains it is, he doesn't explain exactly what it is, but he gives a parallel. But Chassidus explains that any time a person does an Aveda, he's considered a Hoirig Nefesh. He did an act of murder. Why? Remember, the Lord was doing this with someone. He was like, he was going crazy, murderer. Whatever. But why is he considered a murderer? Because when you spill blood, what means you spill blood? You're taking away the person's chayes, taking away the person's life. So when a person does an Aveda, there's the Adam de Kedusha and there's the Adam of Klipa. There's the chayes of Kedusha, there's the chayes of Klipa. He's, in effect, he's making a wound. He's, so to say, taking out some energy of Kedusha and putting it into klipa. So there's a pasuk, Shefich dam ha'adam ba'adam dama yishafich. Someone that spills the blood of man, ba'adam, which literally means amongst other men, in the presence of other men, so his blood should be spilled. So Chassidus explains, Shefich dam ha'adam ba'adam, what's the two adams? What's the man in man? It means there's the man of Kedusha and there's the man of klipa. So he spills the blood of one man, he takes the blood of Kedusha and he pours it into the Adam of Klipa, and into the worlds of Klipa. So he is doing like an act of murder. He's taking godly energy and he's taking it away from what it's supposed to be doing. He's like murdering it, and he's not only that, but he's giving it over to Klipa. So therefore, any Aveda is considered Shevich Dam Adam Badam. So what's the Eitzah for that? The Eitzah for that is the Rabbi spoke about this by the month of Elul, famous Sikha about the Arei Miklat. That what's the Eitzah? The Eitzah is a person has to go to your Miklat, the city of refuge. What's the city of refuge? It says Divrei Torah Koilton. The words of Torah, it says, are Koilat. They protect a person, they shelter a person from the prosecution of the Malach HaMavis who's saying, no, this guy spilled blood. So the words of Torah are kvelit. So he says that the Samach explains that he's not at all in a literal way that there's going to be a physical murder and a physical, you're going to need, there's going to be a physical avenger of the blood and this, but it's all what he doesn't explain exactly what it is. But the idea that he's trying to say is that it's a spiritual type of murder that will take place, and the rectification for it will be the 3 added Arei Miklat. What are the 3 added Arei Miklat? So he says the 3 added Arei Miklat represent this timely Torah, the deeper level of Torah that will be revealed when Moshiach will come. And the Rabbi elaborates upon this, that based on the concept that I mentioned for the words of Torah are kvelit, the words of Torah protect the person. And the Rabbi takes us on a step further. According to Samach Tzedek, just is explaining what it means spiritually, the idea of murder, and what the spiritually means, the Arei Miklat, the city of refuge, which is Torah, and what's the added city of refuge that will be when Mashiach will come. But the Rabbi explains in a very interesting and fundamental level, the Rabbi explains that the Arei Miklat kipshutai, the simple idea of Arei Miklat is to protect a person who, by mistake, did the act of murder. Meaning that there's a possibility that murder should be done, and he needs to be protected from the effect of his negative action. When Mashiach will come, we'll reach a higher stage. Eventually we'll reach a stage that there won't even be a possibility of sin, which sin, like I mentioned before, spiritually is considered murder. So the Rebbe says, a very interesting thing, the Rebbe says that through the revelation of Taimei Torah, through the revelation of the deepest levels of the Torah that will refine the world and elevate the world in such a way that it won't be shaykh, it won't be possible at all that there should be a spiritual act of murder, which means an aveda. So the addition of the 3 Arei Miklat, it's a very interesting twist. If you think about it, simply you think it means there's a murderer, and to protect, there's a negative act being done, and to shield you from the consequence, you have the Arei Miklat. But here the Rebbe is putting the whole thing in reverse. The Arei Miklat creates the whole, and brings into the world the concept that there shouldn't be any murder in the first place. By the person being totally absorbed in the deepest secrets of Torah, that takes away from him, that will be revealed in Mashiach will take away from him the ability to do the act of murder, which is spirit, which means spiritually is the idea of sin. So the Rebbe, it's a very interesting nakuda over here. It's not pshat. There's going to be, in other words, even beruchnius, even spiritually, doesn't mean there'll be a spiritual act of murder and a spiritual tikkun. But it's protection. This will be, like the Rabbi spoke about, preventive, right? The Arei Miklat will be a spiritual prevention which will affect the whole world. It's a spiritual revelation that will affect the whole world to prevent that it shouldn't be possible in the first place in a sin, a idea of sin, which is spiritual murder. That's one explanation. And the Rebbe is the Rabbi goes on to a whole different thing. This is let's start from Masbez. I have to explain a little bit, but the Rabbi says, the Rabbi asks a question. Chassidus asks, what's going to be the point of the loisasa? The 365 negative commandments when Moshiach comes. Usually, the way Chassidus always explains, we're learning in Tanya these days, that the idea of a loisasa, of a negative sin, is not to allow that there should be klipa, the shalish klipas atmeis. The 3 complete klippas should get any sustenance from Kedusha. But when Moshiach comes, the spirit of impurity will be taken away from the earth. There won't be any negative forces, there won't be any klippa. So what's going to be the purpose of keeping, what's going to be the idea of not doing this and not doing that? So the Alter Rebbe explains in Tan and Kunta Sachrin that there's a deeper dimension of Leisas. Leisas is not just, the negative commandments, not just to prevent klippa from getting sustenance, but spiritually it's the idea of gevuris k'toshis, of holy gevuris. It's a negative, which is the idea of gevura, of restraint, restriction. But it's not that you're trying to restrain something from klippa, but it's in kedusha itself, it's level of gevuris k'toshis. Whatever that means is Leisas is even higher than nasa. Yeah. So the Rabbi says the Arei Miklat means that, so in Chassidic terms, this is what we explain, the difference between Asagas HaChiv and Asagas HaShlila. There's certain things you can understand the thing outright. You can understand exactly what it is. Certain things you only understand, for example, a human being can understand what he is. by the Eibishter, we say the Eibishter is smart. We understand the Eibishter's wisdom, no. But we just, this what we call we can't say the Eibishter isn't smart. In other words, we can only understand it because you can't say it's not there, but what exactly it is, you don't know. And so certain things you can understand what they are. Certain things you know that they have to be there, but you can't know what they are clearly. Right. So whatever, again, this also needs to be explained. But
it's an interesting point. It's very interesting because the Rambam alone, the whole raya of Arei Miklat is because if the mitzvah say that's why it means in a separate siman, because all the other pshatim is all the other rayas and Torah could be not a gashmistic thing. So the Rambam says no, it's a mitzvah, and mitzvah can't be l'teyu, can't be except ruchnisik, because that has to be pei mamish. That's the right. That's
right. And
over here, now the Rebbe tries to go back.
No, but the Rebbe is not taking away from the pshat. The very important. The Rebbe is not saying that this is the Rebbe is the Rebbe is not taking away from the. I mean, in pshat, the Rebbe, like I mentioned last week, it's for murder that was done before Moshiach, or that even in the first period of Moshiach will be possible still these things happen. But the Rebbe says that the idea of Ir Miklat means you absorb, koilet. It becomes part of you. So the Rebbe says that the idea of the Ir Miklat means that these great levels of understanding, which until now are so to say, Hasagas HaShlula, we could only understand them in the negative, like we don't understand what it is, but we know that it has to be there because it can't not be there. They'll be niklat v'oifim pnimi, they'll be absorbed in the person internally, he will understand them clearly. Whatever it is, it's words that need to be explained. But I just wanted to mention that. So this is the Arizal's explanation of Arei Miklat, which again it needs a lot more to be elaborated upon. But it's anyway going to be leave people with questions, and I don't have the answers for it. But that leads right away into Chassidus' explanation of the Ir Miklat. What's the whole Nekud of Ir Miklat?
It's a general question. This is a general question. What do you need all the inyanim from the kabbanis and all these inyanim? They're moving from chet. What's So the shad is all the negative things. Shad is. It's one that could.
Right. Now there's just one word. Another word I'll just add also is the Rebbe asked. The Rebbe explains the uniqueness of the proof of Ir Miklat is that if a person, let's say, denies, a person doesn't deny that the Torah promises Moshiach. A person says, the Torah promises Moshiach, but I think that it's not going to happen because the Jewish people lost their chance, chas v'shalom. Or the Torah is speaking about some type of, Or the Torah is speaking about some type of spiritual, end of days, that some people believe in, but not that it's going to be physically with Mashiach, with a person, and all the details that Torah mentions, so on and so forth. So if a person interprets the promises of the Torah of Mashiach, he doesn't deny them. If he denies them, he's a kafir, he's a heretic. He doesn't deny them. He just interprets them his way. He thinks it was dependent on certain conditions, or maybe it should be understood metaphorically, not literally. So then, not necessarily could you call him a kafir, could you call him a heretic.
But he's a kafir in the halacha.
Lav dafka halachically he's a kafir. Lav dafka is halachically, but
no, he's a kafir in halacha. That is saying he's not a kafir.
This is the word. But if a person, because Mashiach is part of a mitzvah, means there's one mitzvah will never be able to fulfill completely until Mashiach comes, which is the addition of 3 Arei Miklat. So if a person wants to interpret a promise or a story of a Torah metaphorically, okay, we don't accept it, but not necessarily do we go so far, we'll call him a heretic. But a person will say that when Torah commanded us to keep Shabbos, it doesn't mean literally, you're not allowed to put on a fire and these things. It means, whatever.
Spiritual risk.
Right. So then he's a heretic because he's being moitzi, varim shamitzah kipshutam. It's not a matter of denying what Torah says, but if you deny the physical obligation to fulfill what Torah says, you take the mitzvahs out of their literal meaning, you call it a heretic. So if a person denies Mashiach, if the Torah wouldn't have made a certain mitzvah dependent on the coming of Mashiach. So then, as long as a person accepts what Torah says, doesn't say I deny that the Torah, I don't believe in what the Torah speaks on Mashiach. Says I believe it, just I believe whatever it is. We lost our chance. So then, not necessarily, we're not saying what he's allowed to do, what he's doing, but not necessarily will be so far to be called a heretic. But if a person denies, because now since then once Mashiach became part of a mitzvah. So if a person denies Mashiach, means he's saying that this mitzvah will never take place. So then he's mamash a heretic.
That's what he's saying, yeah. That's what he's saying.
So the Rebbe's,
When does the Rambam say that the person who is
that's right away in the beginning. But the Rebbe learns that
then the lashon af Arei Miklat doesn't fit. Af Arei Miklat nemar. It shouldn't say af Arei Miklat. It should say mishum. Arei Miklat.
so if a person, there's two things. If a person is
It's not
boy,
mishum. Those are
it depends. It
the raya
depends.
from that comes the raya. Once you bring a raya, the Rambam brings a raya from Arei Miklat, then those are also psukim. Once a person is kafir in today, a person is kafir in Mashiach, and they say it's a metaphor, something ruchnius. He's kafir today not only in Arei Miklat, it's kafir in the Torah of the Bilam also, because when Torah clarified what the issue
Is Teres Menachem Toshin Chav Ches over here? There's a word of the Rebbe on this Va'af, by the way. I think it's in summertime, Chukas Balak, around that thing. Cheva says I think there's a word of the Rebbe on the Va'af, but unless I'm making a mistake. But there's one more thing.
The second one. Third. When the Torah clarifies or Miklat, the Rambam clarifies that the first raya are also strong rayas b'pel mamish. The raya that all the rayas, the other rayas, are b'pel mamish is from Arei Miklat, but not that Arei Miklat comes the raya and everything else is no raya from b'pel mamish.
Still, Arei Miklat is the Ikar raya.
The raya.
First of all, the Rambam, the lashon of the Rambam is here. It's af b'parshas Bilam Nemar. By Bilam Yosef's af, and the Rebbe goes the whole thing on af.
So,
That you want to read it up in Chassidus, it's here. It's on page 274.
so it's Barkat.
Ha?
It doesn't say af Arei Miklat. This is af Arei
No. Next one is after Arei Miklat. The next,
No, it does say
this is, I think that's the last one. I'm not sure.
If you want, I could. Here, whatever. It's the only thing you could learn af as not. It happens to be also. Every af is another addition on the proof. Not only this, but also, in other words, it's building a thing. But the point is, again, if a person deny the Rambam b'pash saying if you deny Mashiach, you push the kafir. But let's say a person that don't deny Mashiach, I have a whole spitzel. So then, I don't know if the Rambam is out.
In the Gemara says when Hillel said that it's Mashiach is going to be Davidson. So the Gemara says the Lashon Gemara is that I think I've got to look at not Lashon Amirach. Gemara says over there that the Eibush should forgive his mouth for the words.
Yeah, but he didn't
because the Raya is in the that doesn't mean a Raya from Arei Miklat, because the Nevi'im later after Chizkiah is still talking about Moshiach. So how can you say that? That's the saying. What do you mean? You really tell me about Chizkiah? The Nevi'im after Chizkiah said still about Moshiach. How can you? What do you mean? You're denying their words? I can do it.
Let's finish fine. I want to finish up the kids with one word the Rebbe explains, and at the end of that whole sicha, the Rebbe says why Taka is Mashiach has to be part of a mitzvah. Why after the mitzvah of Arei Miklat? So the Rebbe says a very positive word. The same way Arei Miklat is a protection for the Goyal Hadam, for the avenger of the blood, and it also is atonement for the murderer, for the killer, whatever you want to call him. So too the same way there's a Arei Miklat in place, there's an Arei Miklat in time. The Rabbi says the period of Yemei Mashiach will be a Arei Miklat, will be a protection from all the negative tzaddis of Galus, from all the Avedas that were done in Galus. So that's the special connection with Moshiach and the mitzvah of Arei Miklat. I would just finish off the Rebbe, one more thing, it's getting late, but the Rebbe says, this also may be explained why Af Arei Miklat is a separate halach. This the Rebbe said in Tavshin on Aleph. The Rebbe explained in the Hadran, the Rambam, a whole thing about the second period of Yemei Mashiach, which is a high, the first period of Yemei Mashiach is the shleimus of world. The second period is where the world goes to a shleimus which is higher than the world. And the Rebbe said that the inyan of the Arei Miklat is the inyan of Apich Sidis, revelation of Chachma Kesecha, of the three moichin which are higher than the world. So it's the elevation of the world into higher than the world. So that's why the Rambam doesn't even use the Lashon by Arei Miklat, that Arei Miklat will happen in Bias HaMashiach. The Rambam just says, Arei Miklat, it says, doesn't connect with Mashiach, because it's really talking about the spiritual revelation of Arei Miklat really takes place in the second period, after, it's an interesting word, but whatever, anyway, fine.
The whole
the Rambam doesn't use the word Mashiach, he says Arei Miklat to Weimer. He doesn't use the word in that halacha Mashiach. The Rebbe says was talking about the second period of Mashiach, which is not directly connected with the coming of Mashiach. It happens later. Anyway, fine.